Screenless. Hello and welcome to another Creative Cuppa. You may have noticed I've had a little break. That was rather a large deadline I had, which was followed swiftly by a much needed break. So anyway, I'm back now and for the foreseeable. It's interesting though that today's guest talks about the need to look after yourself. Very important. So, would the younger you have expected to end up where you are now? It's a question that we can all ask ourselves whether we're creative or not. A question that can lead to other questions about making the right choices, reassessing where we are. Do you need a course adjustment? It's fine if you do. It's your life, isn't it? What do you need to succeed? What's the measure of your success? Is your measure of success truly yours, or are you measuring against other people or businesses? I'd love to know your thoughts. You can contact me via creativecuppa.uk or through the socials using @ScreenlessPod. Let's hear from today's guest then, a life coach and creative consultant. Cuppa ready? Here we go. Megan Colleen, life coach and creative consultant. Welcome to Creative Cuppa.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
You're very welcome. And you are all the way over in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Yes, that's correct. So for listeners, if you're not super familiar with where that is, because it is a very small little town, it's just north of Chicago. So it is nice because prior to the pandemic, it's just a little drive down to Chicago, which is really nice.
Lovely. Sounds very picturesque.
It is. Yes, it is.
Lakes tend to be though, don't they?
Yes.
Very nice. Great. So on your website, Meg, it says that you are a life coach, a creative consultant, a space holder and speaker who helps passionate humans as they rise as the leader of their own life. That's powerful stuff. What does that mean in a practical sense? What does your average day look like, for instance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my background is in marketing and graphic design. So I've brought in kind of this creative consultancy with working with a lot of small business owners, folks who are just starting out with their business or who are working to strategize some things, especially amidst the pandemic. Things have just been a little dicey for a lot of small business owners. So that's kind of where my creative consulting comes in, a lot of brand messaging consulting, marketing strategies, etc. And then the life coaching piece is really that mindset concept where, especially, again, I work with a lot of small business owners. It's not just small business owners, but with a lot of folks working on that mindset, that confidence, that ability to really be the CEO of your life before you're the CEO of your business. Because if we're letting life happen to us, that usually means we're also kind of just letting our business happen to us. So it's kind of working on both sides of the spectrum. So that way it's more like a more holistic approach to creativity, a more holistic approach to business. So that's kind of what those pieces really come together as. And an average day, well, right now it's 8 a.m. and I actually have another 8 a.m. Interview later on this week as well. So sometimes my days start out with an interview, or I have some like writing groups that I'm part of just for fun because I want to tap into my own creativity. So that's typically in the morning for me. And then what happens after that is typically I have a consulting call with a client, and then I have lunch, and then I have a couple more client calls, and then often in the evening is when I do my additional education because I just love to learn and to grow as an individual. So then in the evenings are usually when I kind of have my own coaching and my own education classes that I attend virtually. So that's like a really quick overview of what a typical day looks like.
Yeah, that's great. Do you feel that's really important then to nourish your own creativity in order to help your clients?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. In and out of like on screen, so like learning and growing in that way. And then also with having my own coaching support and therapy support, making sure that I'm keeping on top of my own mindset, and then also just getting outside. And that's where I love living in a little lake town, is just we can go for a walk out by the lake, and we can take our dog out and just enjoy the weather and the sunshine. Right now it's very gloomy. We have got our spring gloomy weather, but I think getting outside really sparks a lot of creativity as well.
It certainly does. I thoroughly agree with that. And it's so easy, isn't it, especially as a small business or working on your own, to just go down that rabbit hole and not look up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not take the time to go out and breathe the air and
Absolutely.
stuff. So really important. So you mentioned you come from a creative background. You have a degree in graphic design. Mm-hmm. What was the journey from there to here? And maybe a more profound question, I suppose. Would the younger you have expected to end up at this point, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. The younger me definitely would not expect to be where I am right now. But yeah, the transition for me, so I started actually in creativity at a very young age. So my very first business, so I've got kind of the small business entrepreneurial blood just in my spirit. It's just what I do. But like I started in high school, I started a photography business. That was my very first experience starting to run a business. And that's what led me into graphic design. Is as I was branding my photography business, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I actually really enjoy this. I'm going to go to school for graphic design. So went through that. And as a graphic designer, marketing really kind of found its way into my life as well. And so I started a marketing agency with a co-business owner, friend of mine. And that's really, we had a lot of really fast success. But we didn't have a lot of those key foundational elements nailed down, like mindset. And I had brought in a lot of codependent tendencies from my own past, allowing just a really unhealthy dynamic to develop in that business. So while from the outside, it looked pretty successful, internally, it felt awful. And so, quite honestly, that's that failure. Ultimately, that business kind of fell apart. So did that business relationship. But that's really what led me into integrating the life coaching piece with the business piece. Because to me, that failure taught me, oh, I need to show up in my life in a different way if I'm going to succeed in the dreams that I desire for myself. And for a lot of folks, that's true. And we see that in the pandemic as well, where you really have to show up for your own mental health first. And you have to show up for your own creativity first before you can really serve your clients well and come up with creative solutions for your business, whether that's pivoting your business or whatever. So that's really what led me into life coaching and creating that kind of more holistic picture of working with creative folks.
Wow, it's amazing. You also have a podcast.
I do, yes.
Called The Reclamation. Why is it The Reclamation Podcast?
Yeah.
What's that name about?
Yeah, so a lot of my work centers around that word of reclamation. And really, I just picture this as the idea of self-reclamation, taking our own personal power back. And, society and the world, like for me, there was just so much outside, there were so many outside voices that really kept me in a box and taught me that I need to fit into this box in order to succeed. Well, that ended up not working so well. And so with my work, I found that self-reclamation is just so powerful when we kind of take that back, when we really allow ourselves to dream big and notice, okay, if this is what I want, how can I get there? How can I cultivate that? Who do I need to be to help to co-create that in my life? And just so much of that word reclamation, I just think is really interesting, of like taking something back that's already ours. It's just really interesting. So, because we are taught to outsource so much of our power. So that's kind of what that's about. And the podcast is really just stories of folks who have had to reclaim, who have had to go through that journey of, oh, I did this thing. It didn't particularly work out, or this is, what happened. And this is how I, journeyed through and took my power back so that I can thrive in a deeper way. So that's what that's all about.
Well, you heard it here, folks. The Reclamation Podcast. Look it up on your podcast app. Where else can people find you, Meg? Where they can seek you out to look at your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at megscolleen.com. That's megscolleen.com. And then on social media, I'm also Megs Colleen. So I mostly hang out on Instagram, but I am on some other things as well, just not as regularly.
Fantastic. So you mentioned writing for yourself. Does that get published? Do you just write it in a book and it stays in a drawer?
Yeah.
Does it serve a purpose to, feed your own creativity, or is it for more than that?
down the road, maybe it'll end up being more. But at this point, it's mostly just a fun way for me to tell stories for myself and to play around. I took a couple different comedy classes in the fall, just to spark my own creativity and to have some fun. And it's very much out of my comfort zone. And so one of the classes I took, it was like a writing comedy. And so I am like still in the like Slack group for that class, and so we meet every week, kind of do a little bit of writing, and then they also have another one where you can actually go through that and have people give feedback. But it's just really for fun, just to try something different, to get myself out of my comfort zone, and yeah, it's just fun.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and it's like you mentioned, these things are really important to keep us healthy, to keep us sane, to keep us, on the level.
Yeah.
So that sounds great. So I'll put the links in the show notes, your website, your Instagram. But for now, Megan Colleen, thank you for joining me for a cuppa.
Yes, thank you as well.
Thanks again to Megan for her time. I totally buy into her attitude of being the CEO of you before being the CEO of your business. You have to show up for your own mental health and creativity first. Totally agree with that. I think it especially applies to small businesses where perhaps you're making all of the decisions and doing all of the work. Now, if you fancy a creative cuppa and some friendly chat, no recording, informal setting if Facebook video can be that, come and join the Creative Cuppa Facebook group. Link is in the show notes, and there are reminders on social media if you follow @ScreenlessPod on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. As always, a positive rating and review are very welcome, and you can find out how and more at creativecuppa.uk. Until next time then, thanks for joining me for a cuppa.